Hello friends, today let us have the continuation of our previous class on Tintern Abbey. Lines written a few miles above Tintern Abbey, a poem by William Wordsworth. We just finished the first stanza, in my previous video. We left out altogether the second part's poetic devices. Let us look at the poetic devices. In the first place, the internal rhyme is beautifully employed in the first line itself. These plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts, and again anaphora, these plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts, these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows. And there is also an allusion to the summer season, point 3, which at this season, with their unripe fruits, refers to the summer season. And look at the color green in the next line itself. Green hue, one green hue. It symbolizes purity and prosperity of nature. Nature in its peak performance, in its abundance, ready to give everything, throw everything into the hands of humanity. That's what Shakespeare observes as he appreciates nature. Mid grows, A is omitted, amid grows. And then you have consonants, hedgerows, hardly hedge. If you just read hardly hedge, that's alliteration. And then little lines, alliteration. These pastoral farms, consonants, sent up in silence from among consonants. And then there is this beautiful imagery, a picture painted in front of us, a green picture of nature. That is the imagery that is celebrated here. We'll go to the second stanza now. This is the first part of the second stanza. Those of the new viewers of this video, I ask you people to go to my first video in order to understand, because I have divided every stanza into 2 to 3 parts so that we can read and understand in a very, very detailed manner. This is the thematic analysis of the second stanza, part 1. Let me read first. These beauteous forms, through a long absence, have not been to me, as is a landscape to a blind man's eye, but oft in lonely rooms, and mid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them, in hours of weariness, sensations sweet, felt in the blood, and felt along the heart, and passing even into my purer mind, with tranquil restoration, feelings too of unremembered pleasure, such perhaps as have no slight or trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. It goes on. We'll just continue in the second part. So it is a flashback. What happened in those 5 years that is lost? He goes back to those 5 years. And then he remembers his loneliness, his sufferings, his disappointments with the world, with the society. The society has made the world artificial, says Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He is not able to live in that artificial world. He suffers loneliness, and then the flash of the scenery comes in front of his mind, which gives him sensations sweet. Gave him sweet sensations during loneliness. And you see, the definition of poetry takes birth in the next few lines. In the next few lines, if we should go to the next slide, just keep in mind spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, emotion recollected in tranquility. That's what we see. Sensation sweet, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration. He will call this second part of the definition the second gift. We will see in the coming lines. So, this memory is equated with the memory of good deeds done by a good man. Even if it is trivial, good deeds, if they are good deeds done by a good man, it should be appreciated. So, when that deed should give him some solace, some peace of mind, some pleasure, then that is something great, something wonderful. So that is the feeling that Wordsworth had when he was suffering and when he thought about nature. Now let us concentrate on the poetic devices. The poetic devices. These beauteous forms, consonants, as is a landscape, consonants, lonely, mid-din, consonants. And that is a comparison, as is a landscape to a blind man's eye, as like when it is used as a direct metaphor, simile it is. And then again, the last few lines, as have no slight or trivial influence. So there are two analogies, two comparisons with the word as, two similes, anaphora, felt in the blood and felt along the heart. And again we have mid the din. So the whole stanza, we can say, alludes to the summer season once again, the beauteous forms. We'll go to the next part of the stanza. The second part of the second stanza, the continuation, I'm going to read. Kindly pay attention. Nor less I trust to them I may have owed another gift of aspect more sublime, that blessed mood, in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened, that serene and blessed mood, in which the affections gently lead us on, until the breath of this corporal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, as we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. That is the end of the second stanza. It is very, very powerful, very difficult to accept as well. So this is exactly from where Wordsworth tries to celebrate nature, considering it as a supreme entity, almost equating to God, with Christians, of course, won't accept, but he comes with his own philosophy in a different way of idiosyncratic theology of his own about pantheism. That's what we can say. So Wordsworth elaborates on receiving another gift. The first gift, of course, we see spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. And the second one, recollected in tranquility. What a contradiction! Feelings and reason combined. In your reason, in the mind, recollected, and which gives peace of mind to Wordsworth. and that makes him a mature poet. Others stop with feelings, but Wordsworth proceeds. He goes forth to discover nature what it is. That's what he says, the sublime and the blessed mood, in which the burden and the mystery and the heavy weight of this unintelligible world is lightened. I don't trust on powerful emotions alone. I'm talking about the second gift. That's what Wordsworth tries to say. And then he goes forth. He mentions, an allusion is made to his own death. What will happen to the future? He will die. He will have to leave this world, the body, to this earth. And that's what we try to understand in physics. No energy is wasted. Body is transformed into another energy. The corpse is transformed into earth. It's very beautiful. Even science seems to cooperate with Wordsworth's definition. And what happens to the soul? It goes and merges with the supreme entity. And there he receives the tranquility, the fulfillment of the second gift, in full harmony with nature. I think the explanations are given on the left. He mentions his death. When a person dies, his soul mingles with the supreme entity called nature. And then again, this tranquility helps the poet understand nature beyond physical and emotional reach. The poet is given the inner eye with which he can see nature as it is. So this is exactly where the second stanza finishes. Shall we go to the poetic devices of the second stanza? No less entrust consonants, them may consonants, and then in which the anaphora, in which the serene and blessed, very weight, that is alliteration, corporal frame, in a beautiful way. Kenning is employed. Kenning is a compound expression. Here it refers to the human body, corporal frame. We are laid asleep. He alludes to his death, and also here, sleep stands as a symbol of death. Everybody has to die. While with, that is alliteration once again. So these are some of the poetic devices. Let us, I think, move to the third stanza as well. It is a very small stanza. With this I'll finish. Let me read first. If this be but a vain belief, yet, oh, how oft in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how oft in spirit have I turned to thee, O sylvan Wye, the wanderer through the woods. How often has my spirit turned to thee? In a very beautiful way, it's like an ode. He is actually addressing the river Wye. Both it is an ode and also apostrophe is employed, as if the river is a person himself or herself. The poet sets forth to give a solid proof. You may not accept my point of view, but look at this. This is the proof. Look at the river. Look at the beauteous forms. Whenever I was in trouble, whenever I was joyless during the day, and when there was darkness during night, when I was having the fever of this world, when the heart was beating with heavy weight of suffering, of disappointments, I turned to the river Wye. That is the proof. He calls the river Wye Silver Wye because it is covered with woods. I don't think I need to add anything to that. I'll go to the poetic devices. With this, let me finish. The poetic devices. Once again, how often he repeats again and again and again. Joyless daylight, that is consonants. Many shapes, that is assonance, have hung, that is alliteration, have I turned in a beautiful way. Inversion is employed. O sylvan by apostrophe. Inversion can also be named as anastrophe. Here it is apostrophe. O sylvan by, addressing a personified river. With this, I think I shall finish. We shall continue with the 4th and the 5th stanzas of Tintern Abbey in my next videos. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening.